Morning, everybody. Welcome. I'll call the roll, please.
Of course. Secretary Chaudhry.
Here, thank you.
Superintendent Chaudhry is absent. Mr. Derenberg.
Here.
Ms. Eberhardt.
I'm here.
Val Lasdens as designee for Secretary Flora.
Here.
Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Ms. Lala is absent, and Chair Casemeyer.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Superintendent Chowdhury and Senator Lala both called and have excused absences today. Do we have any revisions to the agenda or any public comment, Cassandra? Okay.
No, Mr. Chair.
Let's go right to Alex's executive report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, all. Today I have a couple of items to provide updates on. First is, as part of our larger efforts to outreach to stakeholders and engagement to both hear issues and concerns and also to share news from the IAC perspective and developments in our programs as they change, I've been reaching out to multiple groups, including superintendents. And a few weeks ago, the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland invited me to come and provide a briefing to all 24 superintendents at their monthly meeting. The topics included updates on changes at the IAC, Built to Learn program, the development of IAC policy on state investments in leased facilities, the IAC's work regarding the blueprint, public-private partnerships, and pending legislation that relates to facilities in this year's legislative session. I provided the updates and then I answered questions and heard comments from a number of superintendents. There's quite a bit of positive feedback about IAC engagement with and support for the LEAs, which I really appreciated hearing because it reinforces what we're doing to deepen our two-way communication with our stakeholders. The greatest concern I heard in the meeting was around the difficulties that LEAs face in obtaining sufficient fiscal support from their counties for all the facilities work they need to do to maintain their school portfolios. Some LEAs are having difficulty obtaining enough local share to make a full use of the state shares that have been made available in the last couple of years with our increased state funding. I think that the IAC's new revolving loan fund may help to address this challenge to a degree, but IAC staff will still need to work with the LEAs to devise other solutions, including more outreach to county decision makers. And so I've been ramping up this outreach to both the school districts and counties over the past 8 months, meeting with the LEAs and in some cases county officials together to discuss their portfolio needs and to plan together around how to do more meetings across the state over the coming months. The second item I'd like to mention today is our Blueprint Facilities Work Group and an update on our work there. As I presented last month, the Blueprint is a set of policies and dedicated funding from the state that's intended to transform Maryland's early childhood, elementary, and secondary education system to the levels of high-performing systems around the world. Because the Blueprint really contemplates significant changes or expansions to educational programs and services for students, it's expected to have significant ramifications for school facilities. At this month's IAC meeting, Superintendent Chaudhry requested that the IAC invite the Maryland Accountability and Implementation Board, known as the AIB, to send a representative to an upcoming meeting of the IAC to provide a briefing on the blueprint and what it means for Maryland schools. We have discussed this with AIB and we're working to identify a date for a presentation in one of our upcoming meetings. For the most part, the agencies responsible for implementing the blueprint are the AIB, the State Department of Education, and the school districts. The main activity of the IAC with regard to the blueprint is to adjust its gross area baselines to align with the requirements of the blueprint. So to inform that effort, IAC staff are facilitating, as I mentioned last month, a work group that includes representatives from 8 LEAs, 3 counties, MSDE program, content, and data offices, and the AIB itself. This work group is helping IAC staff identify the potential ramifications of the blueprint for school facilities and to explore potential solutions, including how we might adjust our gross area baselines. Last week, staff convened the work group for the second of 10 meetings between now and the end of June. In that meeting, we discussed methodologies for estimating the number of additional pre-K students that LEAs will be required to serve under the blueprint in coming years. And we also discussed whether the IAC should consider adjusting how it counts special education students of various service levels in our space allocation formulas. These conversations will continue in the next meeting, and the work group will also be moving forward to discuss issues relating to spaces that are required to support pre-kindergarten, career technology education, community schools, wraparound services, teacher planning and collaboration, and other topics. The participation in the work group was very good, and we heard many useful comments from participants that will help our staff formulate options. I will provide to you further updates in the coming months' IAC meetings. And as noted last month, out of this input will come staff recommendations to you for adjustments to the gross area baselines that you will hear first in July and then again for approval in August meeting. And so I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions for Alex?
This is Linda.
Yeah.
Alex, do you have minutes of the Blueprint Work Group meetings that you could share us
Absolutely.
between now? That might be helpful so we're not just impacted all at once in July.
Absolutely. Happy to do that. I will have staff send to you the minutes from each meeting shortly after those meetings so that you are getting the same notes that the participants get.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Alex, is it too early to see if any trends developing regarding increased in public and private schools and home schools that may impact public school attendance?
That's a good question. Mr. Chair, we have had some data. Val's team over in MDP has been working on those numbers very extensively over the last couple of years because of the huge changes to what had been a steady state, due to the pandemic. And so, there's been quite a lot of tracking of those numbers. We could bring back some information and present to the commission if you'd like on what MDP is currently seeing now. MDP has shared, and I'll be happy to have Val chime in here if you'd like. MDP has shared its conclusions and projections with us, and it has essentially shown in the nutshell that there has been increased homeschooling and a little bit of increased private school participation in the state. And so public school enrollments are a little bit lower, but things are uncertain because everything was been turned upside down by the pandemic.
That's too early.
So if you'd like some more detail, we have more information we can present. Val, if you'd like to add anything, please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. In fact, I just chatted with our research group yesterday about this topic, and I'll talk to them, see if they could participate or at least present, or have IAC staff present, some of the findings. I know that school enrollments also change, historically have changed with the economy. During tough times, you see an increase in public school students, and then when the economy is humming along, folks can afford to send them to private schools. So I think a combination of both looking at potential impacts of COVID as well as economic conditions, that's something that we could share with the group.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Give 5 minutes or something if we can do it within that time.
Okay.
Mr. Derenberg.
So another thing I'd be interested in is if there's an increase in virtual learning within the different school systems, and how that affects the numbers of enrollment versus enrollment in virtual learning as far as enrollment in the buildings also.
Okay, we can do that. I believe MSDE has data on virtual learning options in each school district, and probably also, I would think, enrollment numbers. My understanding in general, Mike, is that the school systems had offered during the pandemic times more virtual learning options, a large percentage level in some case, but then that has now ramped down to very low now that folks are essentially back in schools to a majority degree. So,
well, I know like in Baltimore County, individual schools could actually offer virtual learning, not school, system wide, but school by school. And we also have like e-learning, which is another kind of virtual learning aspect also. So I just was wondering how
yes,
those numbers affect the student body.
we'll request some most current data then from MSDE and add that to the presentation. And we'll schedule that for either next month or the following month, depending on the time it might take to pull all the data that you're looking for.
Great, thanks.
Before we leave this executive director report thing, I just want to add that in the last few weeks, we've appeared in front of for our budget hearings and our capital budget hearings in Annapolis, and Alex and Cassandra and Arabia and Tom Lockman have been with us, and they have done an outstanding job presenting our situation, our case, and I'd say we've been received very favorably by those committees. So I think the staff's done a really nice job being prepared for those meetings. Alex, you want to go into the consent agenda?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Items 2A through E in our agenda include administrative items, including last month's minutes, new contracts, easements, revision to a previously approved easement, and a property transfer. Item 2F is the Built to Learn project status report, and item 1G is our facility status changes for the month. These are generally typical items with nothing of special import or significance to comment on for this month, so we can stand for questions on any of these items.
Any questions on the consent agenda for Alex? Do you hear a motion we approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second? Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Raise your hand, please. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3, appointment of vice chair. As you may or may not know, the bylaws we recently passed grants the chair the ability to name a vice chair. And as you're all aware, Boyd Rutherford, who had been Secretary of General Services, has left state service. So we have a vacancy in the vice chair role. I would like to nominate Linda Eberhardt to fill that position. So do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Any second? Please, Mike. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion that Linda Eberhardt be appointed vice chair, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Aye.
Linda. Appreciate it, Linda, for agreeing.
Be glad to do it for you.
Good. Item 4, policy clarification, cost eligible for state funding. Cassandra? This is pretty
Yes,
interesting
Mr. Chair.
stuff. Go ahead.
I do think it is interesting, Mr. Chair. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the Commission. The IAC frequently gets questions from LEAs regarding project and contract items that may be ineligible for state funding. In order to clarify our existing regulations and to adopt a policy that further defines the ineligibility of certain costs, the IAC is bringing this motion forward to you. This is also really important and very timely because of changes in the Built to Learn Act, which became effective in 2021, that made design costs and costs for things like furnitures, fixtures, and equipment eligible for IAC participation. So you'll see the policy outlined in item 4 of your agenda beginning on page 49. As I mentioned, for the most part, this just clarifies how we currently interpret our existing regulations. It would require a couple small changes. Approval of this item would allow IAC staff and staff at our partner agencies, DGS is the most involved in our ineligibility review, to work from the same playbook. And so this just really provides a common understanding for us, our partner agencies, and for the LEAs. The proposed policy would clarify that ineligible items include anything with a lifespan of less than 15 years, as well as things like consumables, contingencies, and offsite expenses. It also clarifies that allowances in a construction contract are only eligible under certain conditions when approved by the executive director. I can go into this policy in more detail if the members are interested in that. It is all laid out in this document, or I can read the proposed motion and then stand for questions.
Any questions? I'm gonna make the motion. Secretary.
This is Atif Chaudhry. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions, but I did just want to say that DGS strongly supports this measure because it does provide these standards and help provide clarity. So we strongly support this.
Thank you. Someone like to make the motion that we include in the list of items ineligible for state funding? Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
A second? Mr. Derenberg, any more discussion on this issue? Okay. All in favor of the motion as read? Well, you want to read the motion again, just for sure that everybody is clarified on it, Cassandra?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The motion is to adopt the policy eligibility statement as outlined in this item and to direct staff to make appropriate changes to COMAR and the IAC's Administrative Procedures Guide in accordance with this adopted policy clarification.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Well, we all have bad mornings and make mistakes. And I want to apologize for my mistake. As our former member, Ellington Churchill, just texted me. I screwed that up and for whatever reason said Boyd Rutherford and obviously meant Ellington Churchill. So please accept my apology, Mr. Secretary. Okay. Let's move on to item number 5. FY24 Healthy School Facility Fund Administrative Procedures Guide and Schedule. Arabia?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commission members. The Healthy Schools Facility Fund program administered by the IAC provides allocations that address the environmental health of public school facilities throughout the state of Maryland. For fiscal year 2023, the IAC approved a total of 29 projects totaling $69.6 million to support HVAC systems, remediation of lead in drinking water, aging roofs, and replacement of doors and windows. We anticipate that the remaining $20.4 million set aside for city schools will be presented for approval at the next IAC meeting. The agenda item for your consideration today is approval of the procedures and schedule for the FY 2024 Healthy Schools Facility Fund program, for which the governor's preliminary capital budget includes $90 million. As mandated by Education Article 5322. In accordance with statute, 50% of the proposed funds will be set aside for city schools. Staff of the IAC are recommending technical modifications to the Administrative Procedures Guide and also requesting your authorization to begin accepting funding requests as outlined in the application schedule. The proposed changes to the APG, Administrative Procedures Guide, are intended to clarify that detailed project budgets should be provided for each funding request if available. For projects that include the replacement of multiple building systems, a breakdown of unit costs should be submitted. Clarifies that combining of IAC administered funding programs is permissible and that partially funded projects from a prior program year that requires additional funding due to bid results being above the original allocation are eligible for future funding through this program. We are also requesting approval to begin accepting FY 2024 Healthy Schools Facility Fund applications on March 10th, 2023, with a deadline for project submission on May 8th, 2023, and September 15th, 2023 for city schools. This year's initiation of the program is being recommended to begin earlier than in past years to accommodate requests from a number of LEAs. The proposed schedule aligns with this year's legislative session with the first round of staff recommendations for IAC approval anticipated to occur at your July meeting. Sorry. And if you would like, I can read the motion, Mr. Chair.
Sure, why don't you do that, Arabia?
The motion is to approve the Administrative Procedures Guide and Schedule for the FY 2024 Healthy Schools Facility Fund and to direct IAC staff to solicit applications from each school system and the Maryland School for the Blind for projects that will improve the health of school facilities. Additionally, to authorize IAC staff to make non-substantive edits as necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Someone like to make that motion so we can have discussion? Hear someone make a motion? Thank you.
Move.
Second, Ms. Everhart. Any questions about this motion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Item 6, Healthy School Facility Fund FY22 projects realignment. Arabia?
Yes. Per the Administrative Procedures Guide for the Healthy Schools Facility Fund, at the time of contract award, the local education agency must request the IAC to approve realignment of funds between approved projects. Montgomery County and Hartford County are requesting that the allocations funded through the fiscal year 2021 program year be realigned with recent bid estimates. In addition, Howard County is also requesting a cancellation of the lead remediation project at Homestead Wakefield Elementary due to the upcoming replacement of that facility. Staff supports the LEA's request. The regional facilities manager for these jurisdictions, Rodney Dionisio for Montgomery County and Eileen Glad for Hartford County, are available to respond to project-related questions. I can read the motion.
Please.
The motion is to approve the request from Montgomery County Public Schools and Hartford County Public Schools to adjust the funding allocations for the Healthy Schools Facility Fund projects so that the costs align with the project bids as presented in Table 1 and Table 2 of this item, including the cancellation of the lead remediation project at Hartford County's Homestead Wakefield Elementary.
Thank you.
You're
I hear
welcome.
a motion for purposes of discussion.
So moved.
Second? Mr. Derenberg.
Second.
Discussion. Any questions about this motion? I appreciate Rodney and Eileen being here to help us. Anyone have any questions? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hand, please. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Item 7, FY 2022 Aging School Program Reimbursement Extension Request. Arabia?
Yes, this item is to extend the reimbursement deadline for the FY 2022 Aging Schools Program for city schools in Baltimore County. The city is seeking IAC approval to extend the deadline to submit the required reimbursement documentation for fall staff pre-K to 8 floor replacement project. The delay in the submission of the documents is due to staffing changes. The LEA is confident that they will have all the necessary forms to the IAC by July. Baltimore County is requesting additional time to submit the reimbursement documentation due to unforeseen delays with product delivery and the need to properly install the chairlift replacement project at Ridgely Middle while students are not in school. All work is expected to be completed during the first week of April, with the submission of documents by early June. Staff are in support of the extension request. With me today is the Senior Regional Facilities Manager for City Schools, Melissa Wilfong, and Eileen Glad, the Regional Facilities Manager for Baltimore County, to provide any additional project information that may be needed.
You want to read the motion, please?
Yes. To approve requests from 2 LEAs to extend the reimbursement deadline for 4 aging schools program projects funded in FY 2022 as presented in the table below.
Thank you. For purposes of discussion, somebody like to make this motion? Thank you, Mr. Ripp.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chaudhry, Secretary Chaudhry. Any questions about this motion? Thank you very much for the representatives being here to help us. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Let's move on to the number 8, Built to Learn project approval, Cecil County Public Schools, Northeast Middle and High School replacement. Arabia, you're busy.
Yes. The Built to Learn Act authorizes the Maryland Stadium Authority to sell up to $2.2 billion in bonds for school construction projects. However, until the full extent to which funding will be available to support debt service is known, the IAC is using a conservative estimate provided by the Maryland Stadium Authority last year that's available bond proceeds will be around $1.7 billion. For this meeting, the staff are recommending approval of BTL funding, Built to Learn funding, totaling $12.7 million. For the replacement project at the co-located Northeast Middle High School. This project has already received $4 million for design funds through the FY 2023 CIP, and for FY 2024, staff expect to recommend an additional $20.5 million at the 100% CIP approval in May. This project is captured in the state summary of future obligations with a draw schedule that supports funding through fiscal year 2028. Eileen is available to respond to project-related questions.
Okay, you want to read the motion, Arabia?
The motion is to approve the Built to Learn funding request from Cecil County Public Schools with a total allocation of $12,724,701 for the replacement of the Northeast Middle School and Northeast High School with the co-located Northeast Middle High School. This approval establishes the maximum state allocation for the project of $103,447,000, and the balance of funding will be included on the state summary of future obligations for the capital improvement program.
There a motion to that effect, please? Mr. Gibbons makes a motion. Here a second. Val, thank you. Any discussion on this motion?
So I just have a question.
Oh, Mr. Derenberg.
So is it a middle high school being built together? Is that what that is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was just trying to clarify that.
Mr. Chair, if I might make a quick note.
Please.
Approval of this project's BTL funding will take us very close to the 1 billion mark in allocations of BTL funds to date out of the 1.7 billion. There's been, a little bit of a slowdown in projects coming to us for approval under this program recently, but we do expect additional projects coming in the near future.
1.7 billion, is that number likely to change again soon?
It certainly could. Anytime interest rates change, then the proceeds level from coming bonds could be different from what we've been seeing to date. And so it could go up a little bit or down a little bit. It's hard to say. But we think that based on MSA's guidance, the 1.7 billion number is a safe estimate to use right now in budgeting. And we'll see what happens in the coming months if they do another bond sale.
Any more questions? All in favor, say aye or raise your hands. Any opposed?
Aye.
Eileen, thanks for being here. As a reference, appreciate it. Okay, item number 9, 21st Century School Buildings Program Annual Report. Jamie?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Casemeyer, members of the commission. It's good to see you all. Before you to deliver item 9, an action item, the approval of the Baltimore City Public Schools 21st Century Schools Building Program Annual Report for 2022. Before I read the motion, I will offer an overview on progress, provide detail on staff review of the district-wide utilization rate and the comprehensive maintenance plan, and stand for follow-up questions, along with Larry Flynn, Assistant Vice President of Project Management for the Maryland Stadium Authority Capital Projects Development Group. Mr. Flynn manages the program for MSA and manages the production of the annual report for the partners. Item 9 can be found on page 82 of the meeting agenda. HB 860, the Baltimore City Schools Construction and Revitalization Act of 2013, created the 21st Century Schools Building Program. The Memorandum of Understanding for the Construction and Revitalization of Baltimore City Public Schools, or the Program MOU, define the roles and responsibilities so the 4 partners, which are the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, Baltimore City, the Interagency Commission on School Construction, and the Maryland Stadium Authority, could deliver between 23 and 28 renovated or replaced school buildings. Per Section 10 of the Economic Development article of the Code of Maryland, the partners shall report to the Governor, Board of Public Works, and in accordance of Section 2 of the State Government article, the fiscal committees of the General Assembly on the progress of the replacements, renovations, and the maintenance of Baltimore City public school facilities, including actions completed in the previous year and planned for the current year. So in 2022, 2 school buildings were completed. The reno addition of Montebello Elementary, that's a 93,717 gross square foot building for 525 students, as was the renovation and addition of Highlandtown Elementary, and that was a school building of 121,000 square feet for 914. One school building for 2 programs was added, and that's Frederick Douglass High School, which also houses the Joseph Briscoe Special Ed Academy. In all, 26 school buildings for 30 programs have been completed. $1.17 billion has been contracted to date. Of that, $1.17 billion, $386 million, or about a third, has been contracted with minority business enterprises. To be completed in 2023, 1 school building is set to be completed. That would be the replacement of Cross Country Elementary School, 94,239 gross square foot for 750 students. And looking ahead, 1 school building will be completed in 2025, and that would be Commodore John Rogers replacement. And 1 school building housing 2 programs will be completed in 2026, and that is the Frederick Douglass High School with the Joseph Briscoe Special Ed Academy, for a total of 29 school buildings housing 34 school programs. The IAC responsibilities per the MOU are to, number 1, review city schools' progress towards attainment of district-wide utilization goals, and 2, to review city schools' progress toward attainment of maintenance metrics. For the utilization review, district-wide utilization can be found on page 27 of the annual report, and that is page 109 of your agenda. Each student requires a certain amount of space to learn. Too little space makes it hard to educate students, but too much makes it hard to afford to operate, maintain, and renew educational facilities over an expected 30 years lifetime. That is why utilization is important. The ratio of enrollment to state-rated capacity is utilization, and we use it to approximate the right size at the school cluster and the portfolio scale to ensure a sufficient and sustainable place for each student in Baltimore City and each student across the state to learn. In the program MOU, City Schools committed to a final district-wide utilization of 86% in school year 1920. And the district exceeded the 86% target utilization rate in 19 and 20 with a district-wide utilization of 87%. Utilization in SY 2021-22 was also 87%. However, due in large part to a sustained trend in decline in enrollment, district-wide utilization fell to 85% in school year 2022-23 and is projected to remain at 85% through school year 24-25. The IAC supports good progress made by city schools in increasing its utilization from 83% in school year 2015 and 16 to 87% in school year 21-22. The IAC will continue to work with city schools to determine eligible enrollment for future capital school construction projects based upon specific program needs in order to provide a safe and sufficient place for city school students to learn and to help city schools reduce the anticipated excess of approximately 4,000 seats. The IAC will continue to review annual utilization rates as submitted by city schools until all of the 21st Century School Building Program schools projects have been completed and closed out. For the maintenance review, you can find that on page 56 of the annual report, and that is page 138 of your agenda. The comprehensive maintenance plan matters because educational facilities require effective maintenance in order to provide an educationally sufficient place for each student in Baltimore City and across the state to learn over an expected lifetime of at least 30 years. As required by the 21st Century School Building Program MOU, City Schools committed to increasing its annual facilities maintenance and operations budget to better meet the level of need. For 2022, City Schools increased its F&O budget by approximately $1.4 million to $40.2 million, and for FY 2023 has budgeted an additional $3.1 million. City Schools has made efforts to restructure its maintenance management and best practices by implementing a few key strategies: prioritizing assets that pose significant safety hazards or impact operations, and separating assets on PM work orders to allow for a comprehensive evaluation on multiple units individually, capturing all project costs and information associated with preventive maintenance, implementing capital forecast to accurately represent the current conditions, life cycles, utilization, and functionality of each facility for project prioritization and planning, and continued development of school-dude computerized maintenance management software with Asset Essentials to minimize use of various modules to contain maintenance data. These actions are reflective of City Schools' goals and continuous investment in their staff and facilities. However, the additional steps should be taken to achieve the goals presented in the comprehensive maintenance plan and support adequate maintenance of City Schools' facilities. IAC recommendations include implementing improved quality controls for preventive maintenance services completed by third parties prior to final payouts to ensure that work completed is acceptable and meets the contract requirements, tracking labor hours on preventive maintenance work orders. Tracking labor cost information will allow for greater accountability for third parties and provide data and insights to the life cycle costs for renovations and replacements. Implementing additional quality control strategies such as preventive maintenance work order closeouts and work order aging reports, as well as ensuring these PM procedures for turnover of new buildings for 21st Century School Building programs to City Schools. This will better ensure that punch list and warranty issues are resolved by the appropriate contractor in a timely manner and do not turn into FM&O costs for City Schools. And continuing staff training on computerized maintenance management software technology, data entry, and overall quality assurance of the work being performed and supervised. The IAC expects that City Schools' maintenance effectiveness will continue to improve as it increases its funding for FM&O in the coming years, increases its preventive maintenance efforts, and adopts best practices for maintenance management. Well, that was a lot. So now we will stand for questions.
Yeah, take a break. Larry, do you want to add anything? Okay. Any questions from the panel to Jamie about his report? Okay, Jamie, you want to repeat the motion, please?
I sure do. The motion is to approve the annual report dated January 15th, 2023 by the parties in compliance with the Memorandum of Understanding for the construction and revitalization of Baltimore City Public Schools to the Governor, the Board of Public Works, and the fiscal committees of the General Assembly on the progress of construction and maintenance of Baltimore City Public Schools facilities.
Thank you, Jamie. Do I hear a motion to that effect? Mr. Derenberg, make a motion. Second, Mr. Gibbons. Thank you. Any more discussion on the report? Thanks for your work, Jamie. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. All opposed? Okay. Thank you for being here, Larry. Bye. Okay. Item 10, Cassandra, legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm excited to present to you your first legislative update of the year. The General Assembly convened on January 11th and will adjourn on April 10th. On page 166 of your agenda, you'll see the start of a list of all of the bills that IAC staff have been following so far this session. Those are in order by bill number, certainly not by importance. Most of the bills on this list are those for which the Department of Legislative Services requested that the IAC complete a fiscal impact analysis to determine what impact, if any, the bill would have on our agency. But we've also added a few that we noticed that we thought might be helpful to follow. Today, I'm really just going to go over the budget and one key bill. Most of these bills, you'll see that none of these have passed. The session is still very up in the air. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about bills that may never become law, but I can certainly answer any questions that you have. On the budget, as you probably remember from your last meeting, the capital budget included $90 million for the Healthy School Facility Fund, which you all took action on today to open that application period. $6.1 million for aging schools, $91.3 million for the CIP. That's combined with some operational funds, which I'll talk about in a minute. It also includes an additional $100 million for school construction if the FBI headquarters relocation is not in Maryland. We talked about that a little bit at your last meeting. We don't have any news on that yet. And we may not have any by the time the IAC does its 100% approval in May. So that is something that the IAC may have to handle out of cycle, but that we are following closely. The operational budget bill included PAYGO in the amount of $185.5 million from the general fund and $268.4 million from special funds from the rainy day fund. Of that total amount, $393 million is for the capital improvement program, $40 million is for the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom program, and $20 million is for the revolving loan fund. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, we were at the budget hearings last week. We have not seen any changes to this governor's budget yet, but those may be coming. So we will continue to keep you informed as the budget evolves through the legislative session. Last week, we attended a special Senate work group hearing on Senate Bill 360, which you'll see in the list on page 167. I do want to note that if you're interested in seeing any more information about any of these bills, the bill number on the left in blue is a hyperlink. It'll take you right to the General Assembly's page for that bill. Senate Bill 360 is the bill that I'm most looking forward to highlighting for you today. This bill, if it passes, will establish the IAC as an independent unit of state government instead of as an independent unit of MSDE. As you all know, in 2018, the Interagency Committee on School Construction was reformed as the Interagency Commission on School Construction, with an expanded membership and some increased responsibilities. What this means is that the commission governs all of the actions of the IAC staff's policy and our work, but our establishment as an independent unit of MSDE means that the State Department of Education continues to support some of our back office functions. Those things include things like IT support, human resources, procurement, and finance services that are related to our operating but not our capital budget. That's a really important distinction. I want you guys to know that we handle every aspect of the capital funding that you all approve at almost every meeting that we have. This bill would make the IAC responsible for its own coordination with the appropriate control entities to handle those back office function. Those control agencies are DoIT for IT support, the Department of Budget and Management, and the Comptroller for Finance and for HR, and the Department of General Services for Procurement. I also want to note that we have worked really closely with MSDE on this bill, and they are fully supportive of it. The bill also cleans up some legacy statutory language and increases old cost thresholds in order to account for many years of cost inflation. I won't go into detail on any of the other legislation that is listed today, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have today, and also want to offer that our staff is always available for the members to call anytime if you have questions about anything that's going on during the session. This is an informational item. There's no motion, and with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Cassandra? Okay. Thank you very much. I also wanted to mention that Alex and Cassandra at these meetings have committed to the legislature that we would be reaching out to local LEAs and leadership in counties and to make as many visits to those counties and LEAs as possible during the year. And we're developing a program to do that. So do I hear any more business to be discussed? Any questions? Once again, I want to apologize for our former DGS secretary for giving him the wrong name, and he forgives me. Okay, do I hear a motion? We adjourn. Mr. Derenberg, your second. Secretary Chaudhry. Okay, good to see you all. All in favor of adjourning, say aye or raise your hands. Okay, see you next week. Take care.